There is a quiet paradox in modern health science. Some of the most powerful tools for slowing aging are not rare, expensive, or exotic. They are simple, overlooked, and already present inside your body. One of the most striking examples is glycine, a small amino acid that rarely gets attention yet plays a central role in how well you sleep, how efficiently your cells repair themselves, and how resilient your brain and muscles remain as you age. Here is the surprising insight. As you get older, your body becomes less efficient at producing glycine, even though your demand for it increases. This mismatch creates a subtle but meaningful bottleneck in recovery, sleep quality, metabolic health, and cellular repair. In other words, many people are unknowingly operating with a biological deficit that accelerates aging from the inside out. Why does this matter? Because aging is not just about wrinkles or gray hair. It is about declining sleep depth, slower tissue repair, reduced muscle quality, impaired glucose control, and increased inflammation. These changes affect how you think, how you move, and how you show up in your relationships and daily life. What is happening beneath the surface is a gradual loss of efficiency in the systems that keep your brain and body stable. Here's what the research shows. Glycine sits at the crossroads of several anti-aging pathways. It supports collagen synthesis, which is essential for joints, skin, and connective tissue. It acts as a calming neurotransmitter in the brain, helping regulate sleep onset and nervous system balance. It is a critical building block for glutathione, one of the body's most important antioxidants. And it plays a role in metabolic flexibility, influencing how your body handles glucose and inflammation. The reason glycine is so compelling is not hype. It is leverage, a small input with wide-ranging effects. And unlike many supplements, glycine is inexpensive, well-studied, and deeply integrated into human physiology. In this talk, you will learn what glycine actually does in the brain and body, how aging disrupts glycine availability, and why this matters for sleep, muscle, and longevity. More importantly, you will walk away with simple evidence-based tools for using glycine strategically, timing, dosage, and who benefits most. This is about using science to restore balance, not chase miracles. As you age, your relationship with glycine quietly changes. Early in life, your body produces enough glycine from other amino acids to meet most demands. But over time, that internal production slows at the same time your need for glycine increases because repair, detoxification, and structural maintenance all become more demanding with age. This is why researchers now describe glycine as conditionally essential later in life. Not because it disappears from the diet, but because endogenous synthesis can no longer keep up with physiological demand. Here's what the research shows. Studies examining nitrogen balance and amino acid flux have found that older adults often fail to synthesize sufficient glycine to support optimal collagen turnover, antioxidant defense, and metabolic regulation. Think of it like a factory that once ran efficiently on internal power, but now needs external support to maintain output. Without that support, systems begin to slow. One of the most important consequences of glycine insufficiency is impaired cellular repair. Glycine is required to build collagen, the most abundant protein in the human body. Collagen forms the structural framework of skin, joints, tendons, blood vessels, and even parts of the gut lining. When glycine availability drops, collagen synthesis becomes less efficient. This shows up as joint stiffness, slower injury recovery, thinning skin, and reduced tissue resilience. But the impact goes deeper than structure. Glycine is also a foundational component of glutathione, often described as the master antioxidant. Glutathione neutralizes reactive oxygen species produced during normal metabolism. As oxidative stress increases with age, the demand for glutathione rises. If glycine is limited, glutathione production becomes constrained, leaving cells more vulnerable to damage. What is happening at the systems level is a loss of buffering capacity. Your body becomes less able to absorb stress, whether that stress comes from exercise, poor sleep, inflammation, or psychological strain. This is one reason aging often feels like reduced margin for error. Recovery takes longer. Small disruptions have bigger consequences. An analogy that helps here is to think of glycine as biological lubrication. When levels are adequate, processes glide smoothly, repair occurs efficiently, inflammation resolves faster. When glycine is low, friction increases. Systems still work, but they grind over time. That grinding accelerates wear. This also connects to longevity. Research in animal models, studies in rodents have shown that glycine supplementation can extend lifespan and improve markers of metabolic health. While animal data does not translate directly to humans, the mechanisms involved are highly conserved. Reduced oxidative stress, improved mitochondrial efficiency, and enhanced cellular repair are universal features of slower biological aging. A question worth asking yourself is whether you notice slower recovery than you did years ago. Soreness that lingers, sleep that no longer feels restorative, skin or joints that seem less forgiving. These are not just signs of time passing. They reflect underlying shifts in molecular supply and demand. A simple mental reframe is useful here. Aging is not merely damage accumulation. It is also resource mismatch. Glycine represents one of those mismatches. The body still knows how to repair itself, but it lacks sufficient raw material. Understanding this sets the stage for intelligent intervention, not aggressive supplementation, but strategic restoration. Before discussing protocols, it is essential to understand how glycine affects the nervous system, because that is where many people experience the most immediate and noticeable benefits. In the next section, we will look at glycine's role in the brain, sleep architecture, and nervous system regulation, and why this alone makes it one of the most underestimated tools for healthy aging. Glycine's effects on aging become especially tangible when you look at the brain and nervous system. This is where many people first notice a difference, often within days. Glycine functions as an inhibitory neurotransmitter, particularly in the spinal cord and brain stem, and it also modulates activity in higher brain regions involved in sleep and emotional regulation. In simple terms, glycine helps quiet neural noise so the brain can shift into repair mode. Here's what the research shows. Glycine binds to specific receptors that reduce excessive neuronal firing. This does not sedate the brain. Instead, it stabilizes it. Imagine a room full of people all talking at once. Glycine lowers the volume just enough so meaningful signals can be heard. This is why glycine has been shown in controlled studies to improve sleep onset latency, increase subjective sleep quality, and enhance next-day cognitive performance, even when total sleep time does not change. One particularly interesting finding is that glycine appears to lower core body temperature slightly when taken before sleep. This matters because a drop in core temperature is a biological trigger for sleep initiation. Your brain uses temperature as a signal that it is safe to disengage from alertness. By supporting this natural temperature decline, glycine helps the brain transition into deeper stages of sleep more efficiently. What is happening in your brain during this process is a shift in autonomic balance. Glycine supports parasympathetic activity, often referred to as the rest and digest state. This is the same state associated with tissue repair, immune regulation, and memory consolidation. As people age, they tend to spend more time in a low-level stress response, even during sleep. Glycine helps counteract that drift. A useful analogy is to think of glycine as a brake pedal for the nervous system, not a full stop, but controlled deceleration. Many people lie in bed, exhausted but wired. The body is tired, but the brain refuses to disengage. Glycine addresses that mismatch by calming the neural circuits that keep the system on high alert. There's also evidence that glycine improves sleep efficiency in people who already sleep a reasonable number of hours. This is important. Aging is often associated with lighter, more fragmented sleep rather than shorter sleep. Glycine appears to deepen sleep architecture, which means more time spent in slow-wave sleep, the phase most strongly associated with physical repair and metabolic cleanup. Have you noticed that even after a full night in bed, you sometimes wake up feeling unrested? That is often a quality issue, not a quantity issue. Glycine targets sleep quality at the neurochemical level. This has downstream effects on emotional regulation. Better sleep improves prefrontal cortex function, which is responsible for impulse control, emotional balance, and decision-making. Over time, this translates into better stress. tolerance, and more stable mood. These are not minor benefits. Emotional resilience is one of the most underappreciated markers of healthy aging. If this insight is already changing how you think about sleep and brain health, this is a good moment to subscribe to the channel. Everything here is built around translating neuroscience into tools you can actually use, and there is much more coming. A simple application tool is timing. Most studies showing sleep benefits use glycine about 30 to 60 minutes before bedtime. The effect is subtle but cumulative. This is not about knocking yourself out. It is about signaling safety to the nervous system night after night. Another important point is that glycine does not impair sleep architecture the way many sedatives do. It does not suppress rapid eye movement sleep or deep sleep. Instead, it supports the natural transitions between sleep stages. That distinction matters for long-term brain health. As we move forward, keep this principle in mind. The most powerful anti-aging interventions do not force the body. They remove friction. Glycine does this beautifully at the level of the nervous system. In the next section, we will explore how the same molecule supports the physical structure of the body itself, particularly collagen, joints, skin, and connective tissue, and why this is central to staying mobile and resilient as you age. If the nervous system is the command center of aging, connective tissue is the infrastructure. This is where glycine's role becomes impossible to ignore. Roughly 1 out of every 3 amino acids in collagen is glycine. That alone should signal how foundational it is. Collagen is not just about appearance. It determines how well your joints move, how resilient your tendons are, how elastic your skin remains, and how stable your blood vessels and organs stay over time. Here is what the research. Collagen synthesis depends on adequate availability of glycine, proline, and vitamin C. When glycine intake or production is insufficient, collagen formation becomes inefficient, even if total protein intake is high. This explains why some people consume large amounts of protein yet still experience joint discomfort, slow healing, or thinning skin as they age. An effective way to think about this is construction versus materials. You can have a skilled construction crew represented by enzymes and hormones, but without enough bricks. The building cannot be reinforced. Glycine is one of those bricks. Without it, collagen fibers become weaker and less organized. This matters especially for joints and tendons. These tissues have limited blood supply, which already slows repair. As you age, collagen turnover in these areas decreases further. Glycine helps support that turnover by providing the raw material needed for repair. This is one reason glycine has been studied for its potential to reduce joint stiffness and improve connective tissue recovery when combined with mechanical loading like walking or resistance training. Skin health follows the same principle. Collagen gives skin its tensile strength and elasticity. With age, collagen fibers fragment and degrade faster than they are replaced. Glycine does not stop this process entirely, but it supports the body's ability to keep pace over time. This can mean better skin integrity, not necessarily in terms of looking younger overnight, but in maintaining function and resilience. There's also a gut connection worth mentioning. The lining of the gastrointestinal tract relies heavily on collagen and glycine-rich proteins for maintenance. A compromised gut barrier can drive systemic inflammation, which accelerates aging across multiple systems. Glycine supports gut lining integrity, indirectly reducing inflammation by load. Have you ever noticed that recovery from small injuries takes longer than it used to, or that stiffness seems to appear without obvious cause? These are often signs that connective tissue repair is lagging behind daily wear. Glycine helps close that gap. A simple practical framework is pairing glycine availability with use. Connective tissue responds best when nutrients are available around periods of loading. This means gentle movement, walking, or resistance training combined with adequate glycine can signal the body to reinforce rather than merely maintain tissue. If this breakdown is useful, take a moment to like the video. It helps the channel reach people who are looking for grounded science-based guidance rather than quick fixes. One more empowering point is consistency. Collagen turnover is slow. Think in weeks and months, not days. Glycine works best as a background support, quietly improving the environment in which repair happens. At the cellular level, aging is largely a story of oxidative stress and recovery capacity. Every cell in your body produces energy, and in doing so, it generates reactive byproducts that can damage proteins, DNA, and membranes. The difference between slow aging and accelerated decline is not the absence of stress, but the efficiency of cleanup. This is where glycine becomes critical. Here is what the research shows. Glycine is one of 3 amino acids required to synthesize glutathione, alongside cysteine and glutamate. Glutathione is often called the master antioxidant because it directly neutralizes reactive oxygen species and also regenerates other antioxidants like vitamin C and E. Without adequate glycine, glutathione synthesis becomes a limiting process. Think of glutathione as the cellular janitorial staff. If you cut their supplies, they cannot do their job no matter how motivated they are. As you age, oxidative stress increases due to mitochondrial inefficiency, inflammation, and environmental exposures. At the same time, glutathione levels tend to decline. Glycine availability is one of the bottlenecks in this system. Studies in older adults have shown that supplementing glycine, particularly when combined with cysteine, can restore glutathione levels and improve markers of oxidative stress and mitochondrial function. This has downstream effects on muscle endurance, immune resilience, and metabolic health. What is happening inside the cell is improved redox balance. Redox balance determines whether cells operate in a repair-oriented state or a damage accumulation state. Glycine helps tilt that balance back toward repair. This is not abstract biochemistry. It shows up as better recovery from exercise, less chronic inflammation, and more stable energy levels. A helpful analogy is to imagine your cells as engines. Oxidative stress is like soot buildup. Glutathione is the cleaning system. Glycine ensures that system has enough fuel to keep engines running efficiently rather than overheating and wearing out prematurely. This is especially relevant for muscle and brain tissue. Both are highly metabolically active and vulnerable to oxidative damage. Protecting these tissues preserves mobility, cognitive clarity, and independence with age. These are the outcomes people care about most, even if they do not think in biochemical terms. Have you noticed that fatigue seems deeper or more persistent than it used to be? That small stressors leave you feeling disproportionately drained? This often reflects reduced cellular buffering capacity. Glycine supports that buffer. If this deeper dive into cellular aging is resonating, consider subscribing. The goal of this channel is to connect these invisible processes to visible improvements in daily life. A simple tool here is understanding synergy. Glycine works best when paired with habits that reduce oxidative load. Quality sleep, regular movement, and sufficient protein intake all amplify its effects. Supplements do not replace fundamentals. They enhance them. In the next section, we will examine how glycine influences metabolic health and inflammation, 2 of the most powerful drivers of aging and chronic disease, and why this amino acid may quietly support longevity through improved metabolic stability. Metabolic health is one of the strongest predictors of how well you age. Long before disease appears, subtle shifts in blood sugar control, insulin signaling, and low-grade inflammation begin to shape energy levels, body composition, and cognitive clarity. Glycine plays an unexpectedly important role in this domain. Here's what the research shows. Glycine has been shown to improve insulin sensitivity and glucose tolerance in both animal models and human studies. People with metabolic syndrome and type 2 diabetes consistently show lower circulating glycine levels compared to metabolically healthy individuals. This is not coincidence. Glycine appears to act as a metabolic stabilizer. One mechanism involves inflammation. Chronic low-level inflammation interferes with insulin signaling and accelerates tissue aging. Glycine has anti-inflammatory properties that work through multiple pathways, including inhibition of pro-inflammatory, cytokines, and modulation of immune cell activity. In practical terms, glycine helps turn down the background inflammatory noise that disrupts metabolic communication. Another mechanism relates to the liver. The liver is central to glucose regulation, fat metabolism, and detoxification. Glycine supports liver function by aiding bile acid conjugation and glutathione production. A healthier liver translates into better blood sugar control and lipid balance. This is foundational for long-term metabolic resilience. A useful analogy is to think of metabolism as traffic flow. In youth, signals are clear and traffic moves smoothly. With age, inflammation and oxidative stress damage the signals, leading to congestion. Glycine helps restore clarity to those signals, allowing nutrients and energy to be processed efficiently rather than stored in harmful ways. There's also a relationship between glycine and appetite regulation. Glycine influences hormones involved in satiety and glucose stability. This can reduce energy crashes and reactive eating patterns over time, which supports healthier body composition without aggressive restriction. Have you noticed that you tolerate carbohydrates differently than you once did, or that energy dips feel more pronounced after meals? These are often signs of metabolic inflexibility. Glycine helps improve flexibility, meaning your body can switch between fuel sources more efficiently. This matters deeply for aging. Stable blood sugar protects the brain, preserves blood vessel integrity, and reduces glycation, a process where excess glucose damages proteins and accelerates aging. Glycine helps buffer against this process by improving glucose handling and reducing inflammatory stress. A simple application tool is consistency with timing. Many people benefit from taking glycine in the evening, which supports both sleep and overnight metabolic regulation. Nighttime is when the body performs much of its repair and glucose management. Supporting that window amplifies benefits. What makes glycine so compelling is not that it is dramatic or exotic, but that it quietly supports the systems that determine how well you age. Sleep quality, connective tissue integrity, cellular repair, metabolic stability, and nervous system regulation are all downstream of basic biochemical sufficiency. Glycine sits at the center of that sufficiency. We have covered several key insights. First, glycine becomes conditionally essential with age because internal production declines while demand increases. Second, glycine acts as a calming neurotransmitter that improves sleep quality and nervous system balance without disrupting natural sleep architecture. Third, it provides the structural backbone for collagen, supporting joint, skin, and connective tissue resilience. Fourth, it is a limiting factor in glutathione production, helping cells manage oxidative stress and maintain mitochondrial efficiency. And finally, it supports metabolic health by improving insulin sensitivity and reducing chronic inflammation. The deeper takeaway is this: aging is not just about damage, it is about diminished capacity to repair, regulate, and recover. Glycine helps restore that capacity, not by forcing change, but by removing friction. When the body has the materials it needs, it tends to do the right thing. A simple challenge to apply starting today is this: for the next 2 weeks, focus on one consistent intervention. Consider adding glycine in the evening, paired with a stable bedtime and light movement during the day. Pay attention to sleep depth, morning clarity, joint comfort, and energy stability. These are the signals that matter. Remember, supplements are not shortcuts, they are amplifiers. Glycine works best when layered onto fundamentals like sleep, movement, protein intake, and stress regulation. When those are in place, even small inputs can produce meaningful change. If this conversation helped you see aging through a more empowering lens, take a moment to like the video. It helps this work reach people who are looking for evidence-based tools rather than hype. And if you want to continue learning how to optimize your brain and body with science, consider subscribing and joining the community. This is not about perfection. It is about progress, clarity, and building a body and mind that support the life you want to live. The cheapest anti-aging tools are often the most overlooked.